Okay, can you see it? Full screen? Yeah, perfect, thank you. Well, again, good morning, everyone. First of all, I'm really happy of being here. And I want to thank the organization of this CommOCEAN 2020 for being able to have this conference in these very difficult days. It's a pity not being in person, but for sure we'll meet in 2022, somewhere in Europe. Today I'm here not a researcher, as Joanna said. Fiona said, I'm a researcher. I work in climate change in the Spanish Institute of Oceanography, but I'm not here to talk about science. I'm here to talk about a project called Oceanicas, this Women and Oceanography. And I would like to start with our imagination. Let's do a very small exercise. Many of these audience that we have today work in communication, or many of them maybe are researchers. For sure, many of you give talks or go to schools or somewhere, something like that. And what about if you ask people what you're talking to imagine people working at the sea? What they will answer? Well, for sure, many of them will think about very brave sailors, vessel captains, the Navy, or fishermen. Probably this will be the most common answer. But let's continue with this experiment. Now, what would happen if we ask to imagine scientists? I'm sure in most cases, mainly in children, they could imagine a crazy scientist with even more crazy hair discovering something incredible with a microscope. Or maybe they will see Einstein or Isaac Newton. Now I put those to Spanish, Severo Ochoa or Ramón y Cajal. Maybe they will imagine Marie Curie, or more present, so like Stephen Hawking, or if we are referring to the sea, Jacques Cousteau. What do the answers to these two questions have in common? Normally, when we imagine a scientist or a sea worker, we imagine a man. And that's the reason why Oceanicas was born. Sorry. Oceanicas is a project funded by the Spanish ministry devoted to enhance the role of women in marine sciences. We want to visibilize the work of the women, but not only present. We want to honor also the pioneers in oceanography. We are really committed to the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, with number 14, life equal water, but mainly with number 5. In this project, we work hard for number 5, gender equality. In the United Nations website, we can read exactly, let me move this, thank you. Gender equality is not only a fundamental human right, but a necessary foundation for a peaceful, prosperous, and sustainable world. And we work in this sense. We have a very, very special date. For us, it's a very special date, February the 11th. It's the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. That day, all the oceanographic centers of the Spanish Institute of Oceanography, where I work, we have 9 oceanographic centers all around the Spanish coast. Well, that day, the 11th of February, we open our doors to the general public. I'm sorry. The idea is to have open days showing our activities in fisheries, oceanography, climate change, aquaculture, etc., but through a female perspective. We want mainly the children to discover that women do science and that they do it very close to them. We also, during this open day, honor our pioneers in a very, very funny way, in my opinion. Now I'm going to show you some of them. Like Jean Barrett. Jean Barrett was the first woman to travel around the world in a vessel, but had to do it dressed as a man because it was absolutely forbidden for women. But well, during our open days, some women, some colleagues, dressed themselves as these pioneers. And they tell their stories in the first person, telling the difficulties that these pioneers had to face during their lives. Children really ask them as if they were the real pioneer. We have another examples. For example, we have Jean, sorry for my French, Jean Villepreux, the inventor of the aquariums and their use as a tool to study marine life. And here is my colleague, dressed as her. Or Anita Conti, a pioneer advisor of the impacts of industrial fisheries on ecosystems. Here is my colleague too. For example, Mary Sears, a commander who led the first marine oceanographic unit. Mary Tharp, the first person to chart the bottom of all the oceans. You can see my colleague here too. Or Eugene Clark, who has been studying sharks for more than 40 years. This one is fantastic, in my opinion. Or a very most famous one, maybe the most famous one is Silvia Elf, is still alive, an American marine biologist and explorer. And here you can see her. But for us, the most relevant is this person, is this woman. She is Jimena Quiroz. She was the first Spanish woman to participate in an oceanographic cruise. She was born in the south of Spain, in Almeria, at the end of the 19th century. And she was also the first woman to sign a scientific paper. She was more than a researcher. She was a fighter for the women's rights in a very difficult period of Spanish history, during the Civil War and the subsequent 40 years of dictatorship. Due to his political thoughts, she was fired from our institution, from IEO, and she was finally readmitted in 1966, but she was so old that she was readmitted as a retired. The most interesting about Jimena's history is that it was absolutely forgotten. Her story has been recovered thanks to his nephew. She didn't have children. His nephew was 80 years old when we contacted him, and he had saved and had preserved many information about her aunt. Thanks to him, we could reconstruct his Jimena history, her life and achievements. And here that's the way we honor her. You can find all the information of Oceanicas in our website. You can see it there, oceanicas.ieo.es. Sorry, it's in Spanish. And for example, we have published a book where we have compiled the stories of these pioneers. It's free downloadable here in our website. But Oceanicas is much more than a tribute to our pioneers. We have different sections. For example, we have Oceanicas de hoy, today's Oceanicas. That is a space for women currently working in marine science and technology to show their activities. Oceanicas has proved to be a great tool to disseminate science through the eyes of the women. Scientists, technologists, policymakers, industry representatives have their room in Oceanicas. Here are some examples. In our web, we show the professional profiles of many women, and they talk about the research in first person. For example, you can find a colleague talking about microplastics, or fisheries population distribution, or this is me, climate change, or fisheries reproduction, or even one of the most difficult works, in my opinion, on the sea is to work on a scientific observer in fisheries vessels. And there are many women doing that work. We also have specific blogs devoted to many different areas, for example, fisheries, climate change, geology, or ecology. And you can also find some interviews to very, very interesting women that have made some extraordinary things in marine science, marine engineering, or industry, policymakers. All of them have their space here in our website. All of them are Oceanicas. Well, this is essentially Oceanicas, a public microphone for women to show their work and achievements. But this year, thanks to the huge success of Oceanicas in Spain, the Spanish Equality Ministry funded the first Oceanicas meeting that was held 1 month ago. The meeting name was Oceanicas, Past, Present, and Future of the Role of Women in Marine Sciences. It was held at the end of October, and due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we decided to do a mixed event, both present and online. It was a bit crazy to have this in these 2 different ways. We have a total of 450 registrations from more than 10 different countries. Remember, it's all in Spanish. and from 50 different institutions, not only scientific, but also universities, industry, fisheries, etc. 100 of them were in person and the rest were online. For us was incredible, but there's something we couldn't reach. Only 10% of total registrations were from men. So there's something we are doing wrong. Maybe our message is not strong enough for men to engage them with the problems that women have to face during their professional or research career. What we did during this meeting: in-person talks about pioneers, the situation of women in marine science at all levels. For example, in Spain, a very small percentage of women reach the highest level of the scientific career. Only 16% of the director positions are occupied by women, but the 75% of the lowest levels in marine science are occupied by women. Referring to research career, women are the 50% of the jobs where a PhD is required. But for example, in my institution, the Spanish Institute of Oceanography, in its more than 100 years of history, only one woman has been the general director, and only for 2 years. We also had, during this meeting, online talks. Maybe you know the more international one here is Grace Young, an engineer, a geologist, a young engineer, sorry. And the most important of all the event were the roundtables. We had 4 different roundtables. Sorry, 5. The first one, we call it institutional, when representatives of universities, research institutes, science ministry talk about the situation of equality in their own institutions. Another one was big expeditions, to show the role of women who had participated or led big oceanographic surveys like in Antarctica, the Arctic, so on. And the 3 more important, in my opinion, my personal opinion, is we had one talking about glass ceiling, to discuss why women don't reach high responsibility positions, family life, to talk about how women can reconcile their professional life with their family life. And finally, that was the most controversial one, work on board, where it was to discuss about the problems women have to face on board of research or fisheries vessels. For example, during this roundtable, they talk about sexual harassment that is a fact on research or even fisheries vessels. And that's all what I wanted to say. I have one conclusion. Oceanicas has demonstrated to be an incredible tool to disseminate marine science, promoting the role of women in oceanography. And I would like to finish going again to our imagination. Why don't we have an Oceanicas at European level? So I leave this question to the air, and if someone is interested in or wanted to ask anything, you can find me here. This is my mail, carmen.garcia@io.is, or you can follow us in our different social media. Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you, Mari Carmen. That is a really wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure that everybody here did enjoy it. We're quite close to time, so I don't know whether there's a few questions, but I'm wondering whether we can save them till later, or maybe you can address a couple of them via the chat. Someone's asking who the artist is for those amazing illustrations. And there's also a question about any plans to translate the book, perhaps into English or other languages. So maybe we can take some other questions at the end, and I'll move on to our next speaker. Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Maria Joanna Cruz, who is a marine biologist who has been working as a marine educator and communicator at OMA in the Azores. She is going to be talking about the hashtag #IDiveAtHome marine education during COVID-19 times. So over to you, Maria.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you, Carmen. It was really, really good. We were already planning, maybe we can have the calendar in Portuguese, so we'll talk about it after. So yeah, the title of our presentation is a bit big, marine education during COVID-19 times, and how can we communicate the sea and its issues to a lockdown public dealing with a worldwide pandemia. So first, let me start by telling you a little bit of who we are. So OMA, which means Observatório do Mar dos Açores, if we translate it, it's the Sea Observatory of the Azores, and it was founded in 2002. I'm very sorry. And it's a technical, scientific, and cultural non-profit association. We are based in an old whaling station that is now a museum, and we are one of the 6 science centers of the region. Our mission, as you can read on the slide, is to share the scientific and technological knowledge from the researchers in the Azores mainly to all publics. So in other words, what we do is translate the science into a more comprehensive language. We do that through the combined work of a team of marine biologists and also communicators and designers. We adapt the information depending on the age. So we do hands-on activities, presentations, books, a lot of different things. And what we achieve with this is to increase ocean literacy, stimulating the love and respect for the ocean with the main goal of its conservation. So I think like most institutions working with the sea at the moment, we work with different sustainable development goals, but mainly the 14. So in case you're wondering, this is where we are located. You can see the map. So we're right in the middle of the North Atlantic, in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. We're actually 9 quite small volcanic islands. And due to where we are, we work with other islands and we also work abroad, but mainly our target is our 15,000 inhabitants. So we're talking about 12 schools with 2,000 students if we talk about the school population. So we work with the same kids a lot. We know them, we accompany their school tour. So we work with them along the different years. And it's our main activity in the educational team. And I can just tell you that in the last 9 years, we worked with around 71,000 participants in our activities. So for such a tiny island, we do try to get around a little bit. We know very well the students we work with. Just to give you an idea, in 2019, we had almost daily hands-on activities with more than 7,000 students. As you can see through the pictures, most of the activities take place in the shoreline. So we like to take the kids off to school, bring them to the labs in the university, but we also do some activities in the school. For 2020, we had a lot of projects with a lot of students, a lot of classes, and we had the full agenda until the summer. But on March 13, due to the lockdown, we were all sent home and everything was canceled abruptly. And though our team was very in awe with the world situation, we couldn't stop thinking about the students that we were working almost on a daily basis. So the educational and the design and communication team, we shared a few hours of brainstorming through Zoom and through messaging. And 5 days later, on March 18, in order to keep our students connected to something they loved, but could not reach or enjoy at the time. And well, to be very honest, to keep them and us as well busy and distracted with something fun and easygoing, we released the first iDive at Home. So this was the first of 34 online sets of our own activities, reaching 5 different ocean themes. So as you can see in the pictures, we had marine life, marine litter, oceanography, deep sea, and maritime history. These are some of the themes we work mostly on our yearly activities. These activities were directed to children from age 3 to 12 because, you know, all the kids, they have a lot of stuff to entertain them at home or more than the tiny ones. And depending on the age, they could be done alone or with adult help or supervision. But I think that a lot of parents really enjoyed playing with their kids as well. So we started by posting on our Facebook and emailing to our mailing list, one activity a day. So we were kept quite busy. When the official online classes began, we changed to once a week. And then when we were able to be with the kids again, we just stopped doing. So just to share a little bit of our statistics with you, they show that we reached a total organic of 5,828 people on Facebook. And although we have no numbers for the outreach on the website and the email, we sent 25,000 emails to 775 different people. So we were basically bombing everybody to dive at home. We got a lot of nice feedback from other institutions, other science centers, teachers, and also personal friends. And because we are lucky enough to have, like 99% international team, so we come from very multicultural, we have people from different places. Though Carmen would like to know, we're almost only girls, we have one boy on the team. We translated some of the resources or some of the activities to English, French, and Spanish. So we actually have them, most of them in 4 languages at the moment. So just to show you a little bit better the structure of the dives at home. So our design team, they created these 3 little characters that dive with you on a sofa, and they will accompany you through the activity, which starts with the theoretical part. So usually we had 1 or 2 or 3 slides maybe about the animal or the subject we were talking about with real pictures. So we don't have any cartoons here. And then we have a very simple material list. This was the hardest part because in an island, sometimes we don't have everything. And during the lockdown, it was even harder, and we didn't want people to leave the houses a lot. So we tried to do, especially the first activities with stuff that people had in their houses. So here we're talking about the blue shark. We're trying to demystify that the sharks are dangerous to us. It's a species that we have here. People dive with them a lot here in the summer. And we've chosen to build a Tromatop, which is an optical illusion thing that you can make very easily. So you could increase the screen of your computer, use the design, and then you had very simple instructions on how to build it. Well, just to conclude, at the time, we just jumped into the home dives. You know, it was like, as we usually say there, one has an idea and we all follow. Sometimes we don't really stop to think about it. But it was a very nice way to stay close to the students with whom we worked for so long. But we realized later that this project is also a very good example of how adaptation and autonomy are key aspects of the work of a marine educator. Actually, in my opinion, of everybody that works with the ocean. As you probably know, when we work with the ocean, we have to be able to adapt to unexpected scenarios, either a storm when we're planning to go out in the ocean, or in this case, a global pandemic that locked us all in our houses. So for my part, this is it. You have our contacts here. If you're interested in anything else, we can also share the resources with you. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria Joanna. That was a really interesting project, and great to see those social media numbers, some really, really big numbers of bombing people with emails and activities. It looks like you've had lots of fun, and the people you've been sending stuff to have had lots of fun. We do have time for a couple of questions. I can't see any in the chat at the moment, but if anybody wants to ask anything, they can raise their hands, or I'm not quite sure how this works, or they can pop something in the chat now. We'll just give it a couple of minutes. Anybody has anything?
There's a question in the chat. Yeah.
There's a question in the chat there. So thank you for the presentation. Joanna, do you expect to continue with the online engagement post-pandemic?
So actually, at the moment, we are we're finishing our pedagogical offer for this year. And since the schools are working here, we have 3 cases in the island, and we're very protected from the COVID situation. We start going to schools, and we've been doing online presentations or classes with the students. So at the moment, we're not producing any more dives at home. We have the ones that we produced already, but we never know what the future will bring. We still have a few activities on the sleeve that we can take off.
Okay, cool. I think the other question in the chat is for Maria, so I'll save that until after our final thing. So I think we'll move on, which leaves us more time for questions at the end and discussion later. So thank you again for that presentation, and we'll move on to our third speaker, who is Kathrin Kopke. She is a coastal and marine research scientist from the Murray Centre at the University College Cork in Ireland, and she's going to be talking about engaging project stakeholders during COVID-19. This is the JONAS underwater noise workshop. So over to you, Kathrin.
Can you see the presentation and can you hear me?
We can see your screen. I think you need to move into presentation
mode. Okay. Okay, this is okay now, I can see it.
That's right, perfect.
Okay, thank you. And amazing, inspiring presentations there that happened here before, so I'm very happy to be in this session. Basically, my name is Kathrin Kopke. I work in the Murray Centre in University College Cork, and together with my colleague Amy Dozier, we're responsible for the science communication, dissemination and stakeholder engagement in the JONAS project. And just a bit of background or context information. So JONAS is looking at underwater noise and the issues of that it poses to sensitive species and biodiversity. And it's funded by the Atlantic area. And we have 9 partners working here on different aspects concerning underwater noise. As such, there are some key deliverables here that we want to develop. And one is a data sharing platform, validated risk maps, common methodologies, and noise reduction case studies. And ideally, we want to put them all to one place, what we call a virtual research environment. And that should develop into, hopefully, an online underwater noise visualization platform. So we want to bring it all together, and the target audiences here are other scientists, other research projects that can go in there, investigate, and further underwater noise research, but also the policy and decision makers. So we want to develop this platform in a way that it helps make decisions on that topic. So as such, stakeholder engagement is at the heart of the project. And what we had planned was a series of workshops involving different levels of decision makers and policy makers and scientists in numerous face-to-face workshops to enable proactive knowledge exchange and really fine-tune this platform so that it suits everyone's requirements. And ultimately, I think in those funded projects, what you want when you develop something like that is widespread uptake and somebody to adopt this resource so that it doesn't die at the end of the project. So what happened? Our first workshop, and this is maybe also a little bit resonating with the previous presentation, was planned in March in beautiful Lisbon. And we were all ready to go. We had put months and months of work into this. A little nod to the first presentation, mainly by our female colleagues in terms of administration, booking rooms, getting everything ready, getting also the right people in the room. And we had 30 people committed, which wasn't easy because we were trying to get people that are really busy to commit to this. We had everybody there, and then the event was cancelled. And it was kind of, I don't know, I guess there's a lot of people or a lot of projects that happen too. And there was early voices, it's like, just do it online. And I don't think, you know, you can't underestimate what that means when suddenly everything shuts down. You go like, well, I put just 3 months work into this and I can't just do it online. It's not going to be the same in terms of design and implementing, but we did recover ourselves, and we did it online, and we managed in a slightly different format. We redesigned what we had planned to still get the input, because the people developing the platform, the Implocan, Eric Delory was asking us, I still need to know what the potential end users want from us so that we develop it straight from the beginning in a way that they will use it. We shared our resources subsequently online. So if you want to know more and see, for example, the presentations that were given, and also what happened in discussion with people participating, there's some resources on our resources and media page on the JONAS website. I'm going to talk through some of it within the given time frame. So the event, the way we structured it, we basically tried to do it 50-50 in terms of presentations and having real exchange of information. So in that sense, if you're the science communicator on a project, the scientists usually have a lot to say. So we kind of gave them the heads up, you only have 10 minutes to talk. That's it. You can't go too much into detail because we want to listen to the people that are coming online and giving us their time. And so basically we had a project overview really quickly by our coordinator, and then Nathan Merchant and CFAS talked about some specific aspect of the work where he wants to develop indicators and was looking for feedback on these. And then we introduced the virtual research environment and also our vision for this virtual underwater noise platform. And then the participants had opportunities, like how many of you experienced this now in the last year, to provide their views and pose questions by either requesting to speak verbally or by commenting in the platform chat function. And we also developed or adapted, we didn't develop this, a guided conversation approach based on participant group facilitation methods. And the questions we used in that approach were strongly adapted from the oral method, which I'm going to explain a bit later for those of you not familiar. For those of you who are familiar, our approach was maybe not as in depth as other approaches in face-to-face situations, because we also were conscious that these participants had given us their time. So we kept it short, but it allowed us to really get feedback in a more structured approach, and it allowed the participants to kind of reflect on issues. Okay, so who was there? So we had a mix of people, so we had representatives from these organizations and at different, that cover different areas. For example, we have ACOBAMS there, we had the Spanish ministry there, we had representatives from the regional government in Madeira, Portugal, we had Marine Scotland there, then also experts on underwater noise from the Spanish Institute of Oceanography. We had a non-profit organization from CT Naval representatives, so very technical, and they're very looking at underwater noise and very bioacoustics and really measuring the stuff and the monitoring. We had people from IMAR there who are working in the Azores. And we also had the government department in Portugal, DGRM, the representatives that are responsible for the implementation of the MSFD, specifically the Scripter 11 underwater noise. And last but not least, also again, underwater noise experts, more from a research science perspective, from the Polytechnic University of Valencia in Spain. So what does that mean, the guided conversation approach? Okay, so what we try to do is lead participants through a series of questions where they are allowed to answer in different ways. When I say that, they are allowed to respond to different aspects of the issues we're asking them. So you ask an objective question at the beginning so that each participant can hear their own voice and has spoken. So this should be a question that everyone can answer. So we did, to also save time, we didn't do an icebreaker as such, which I think people could adapt to that. We just asked people to introduce themselves and by name and affiliation. So everybody had heard their own voice. And then we kind of snuck a little bit a question in to list one positive aspect or one concern they may have in relation to what was presented, which allowed us to gather some initial impression, because in this online meeting, you kind of in a distance where you don't know exactly what's the feeling in the room, to just see where people kind of positive or maybe more negative. And then we asked them a question where they could really reflect to address an initial feeling. And maybe that would allow us as well to clarify issue or if there was any misunderstanding. So we really asked them, are you feeling rather confident or doubtful, whether we can create a platform that serves your needs? We went onto the individuals, would you go and use it in a way? And if possible, give us reasons why. And we followed on with another reflective, maybe / interpretive question, where we kind of dug deeper. Do you see potential strengths and weaknesses in your opinion? And then we really wanted to know how, from their perspective, they would see we can address those weaknesses. So these questions, so the first 4, usually take the most time, and you get loads of additional information, not maybe so much input directly on the platform that the technical developer can take up, but the decision questions, which might be the shortest, give you really, they allow, if you allow participants to go through this process, these decisional questions will allow participants to really give you the nuggets that the developers in Plocan can take away. We then asked, what information would you be looking for on a JONAS platform, or what type of functionality? And I think if we would have asked that as the first questions, it wouldn't have worked so well. So it actually worked well that these questions didn't take long, because participants had so much time to reflect and interpret around that topic, that by that time they were ready to give us, I want this, I need that, and I think I also like to have this one. And we then had to open questions just in case we forgot things, like any other users we should be engaging in subsequent workshops. And is there anything else we should have addressed in this workshop? So what happened? What did we get out of it? So we got sets of specific recommendations. So that was brilliant that the project team could take away. But we also had a lot of new ideas that emerged, and it was a really interesting conversation. So again, if you're interested in more detail, we have a longer report and a shorter report that's downloadable, because it's a bit short time. But in a sense, what the recommendations were on the indicator development, which was also interesting in terms of they focused in really about standardizing terminology between policymakers and scientists. It was in the conversation, it became quite clear that people call the same thing different names, which can lead to a lot of confusion. And then to make efforts and share, compare and adapt methodologies and results with the other projects, because there are other research projects such as RAGES, JOMOPANS and MAPAM that are also looking at underwater noise, and to really make an effort to really come together with the other scientists to further not just the research, but also make sure that the language is the same, that there are standards that policy and decision makers can take up. In terms of our vision for the visualization platform, it was really interesting because the participants told us you need to provide clear guidelines in terms of anything that you put on there, the context and how to interpret the data, document the data and metadata really clearly. So for those of you who might not be familiar, metadata is data about data. So who's the author, when was it taken, in what area, so exactly documenting that. Include the confidence levels that you can address uncertainties. A nice suggestion, and I thought was brilliant, was a data directory, so that we're capturing local and regional sources of data. Participants felt really strongly that there's a lot of work going on, even on the side, people putting equipment into the sea, but there's no way for anyone to see or access this data. It would be nice to even just have a directory. Who do I need to go to if I want to have information in the Azores, for example? And what I also thought was really nice to explore the potential for the platform to be used for collaboration and training between the policymakers and scientists. And again, guidelines of who and how and where this platform can be accessed, and to encourage other projects and initiatives to submit that localized data people were so interested in, and make sure we can interface with any similar platforms or platforms that might provide a different aspect of marine research. So I'm nearly there, but what we also did, because of that adaptation, we wanted to know, did this really work? Did people feel comfortable? Really wanted to know, were they happy with how this went down? And we did give a short post-workshop evaluation survey that allows us to take that feedback and maybe improve it if we have to do another workshop online or maybe even a hybrid event. And we generally get positive feedback, so it did work. So if people are interested, this works in an online context, this guided conversation approach, as people, for example, let us know that they felt both presentations and the guided conversation were equally important for their purpose of attending. So I thought that was really important. And they felt that because the information was well presented and clearly explained, it allowed for that process to happen. And basically they felt supported through this event. So if people are planning more online events, I think this is actually working. And that was the reason why we wanted to share this today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kathrin. That was a really enlightening presentation, and I'm sure lots of us are planning various different things happening online at the moment. I know I've got a couple of things on my to-do list coming up, so I'll take a few tips away from how you've done that. Do we have any specific questions from the audience for this particular presentation before we move into general questions? I don't see anything in the chat box. No. Okay, in which case I'm gonna open the questions to general discussion about all of this. We've got there's a few different bits and pieces that seem to be directed at specific speakers, but one I'm just gonna start the discussion off because it's relevant, I think, to all of you, is that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, obviously we've adapted to doing lots of things online over the last several months. But there seems to be a little bit of online fatigue. I think lots of people are getting a bit stressed with working from their homes and the constant interruptions of trying to concentrate on something. Do you think that this online fatigue is reducing the impact of the activities that you've been working on? So I'll put that to either one of you to pick that up first. Yeah, Kathrin?
I could say something. I mean, I felt, and I don't know if other people felt like that as well. There was a lot in the projects where people turned around. It's like, just do it online. So I felt at some moment after March, maybe it was May, June, there was a lot created. And because we were involved in so many things ourselves, I actually missed out on a lot of things that I would want to attend and learn from. So I think, and maybe that's just, was just a coincidence, but I felt there was a lot of a push. Everything has to go online, but because we did it all at the same time, that we may have missed out on each other's stuff, and we're just, everybody created. I'm not sure how that is for the audiences, and it's difficult to gauge without us asking our target audiences, hey, how many things did you attend online? And I think maybe what Joanna was presenting there might have given a better indication of how many people participated, because with some of the events, from my point of view, that I would have liked to attend, maybe for others, people working in this, it wasn't such a big problem. So it's not, I don't have an answer. I just have an opinion, an experience.
I think, in my opinion, it has always been hard to choose things online. There was always a lot of things happening, and there still is, and there will always be. I just think that in a way, a lot of people turned more into that. And regarding work concern issues, I think a lot of people are doing much more than they used to do when they were at the offices, because also of time differences. I can see clearly here, even now with the online meetings, the days and the fact that you're home, you're actually you never stop, but in a way you're a lot of times or after hours, you're not completely focused, or especially during the pandemic, you know, everybody in Oman, we had to create the activities and do everything with the kids running around and with a lot of things happening. So I also don't have an answer, but also in my personal opinion, I think it's very hard to choose what we really want to see, and it's not as effective as being with people. It's like this kind of conferences. It's really nice that they're still happening, but I feel, in my opinion, I get distracted easily. So I have to be more aware of what's happening. And it is hard to choose. And well, sometimes I think people choose not to do anything online because also they're a bit tired of the computer.
Yeah, no, I think those are fair points. I know my own experience is very much the not being there in person makes it much easier, as you say, to get distracted by things. There's always something else dragging on your time. Carmen, did you have a comment on this?
Well, I think it's a different life like we are living. So in my opinion, I think we are suffering a fatigue online. I'm always on meetings, and I miss to be in a meeting with people. I would love to be in this conference in person, because you can meet people, you can talk about many other things. Here we have our presentations, we have 15 minutes for questions. I can give you my mail, but that's all. It's different if it's in person. We can interact of another way.
Yeah.
It's
we've got a couple of comments on those topics coming back from the audience here. So yeah, online events also create some opportunities. It's free to participate in many cases, no travel needed, no travel expenses, more subscriptions of new public, you know, people who wouldn't normally have attended these conferences. I think that's a really good point. I know there's also, I know with one event that I'm organising, involved with at the moment, it's trying to find something that works across time zones, because how inclusive is it really if you're trying to, you know, when people travel to an event, they adapt to the time zone. They might be a little bit jet lagged, but you've got the daylight in the right time and place, and you just sort of, you wing through it. But actually attending a conference at 2 a.m. in your own time zone, it's not pretty. Let's see what other comments we got here. So there's a question directed at Kathrin here. I had a similar experience of having to adapt a workshop to an online format in a participatory project to build a public policy on marine litter. It was a lot of work, but we considered the event successful. But we did notice there was lower adhesion of participation. Do you think there is anything we could have done to improve this? That's in the chat there.
I think maybe not. I think as organizers of these workshops, it's very difficult to improve it, because there is a certain, we're asking possibly the same people to attend in different projects, and there is a certain competition unless we develop a way that we all can check in with each other, you know, that we're not asking people to overbook. Because in my view, if we were organizing face-to-face personal events, and there is an out of office, or people say, no, I'm already attending that conference, I think there was a high expectation. It's just online, you're anyway at home. You know, there was that kind of sentiment. And I think that what Joanna said, they're very long days, and come on, it's just an hour here and there. And these events are they are exhausting. If you do a whole full day workshop with people, I don't know. I mean, I in my lunch breaks, in the virtual lunch breaks, I would lie on my bed. Just go, oh my God, because it's in your head and it's a different way of engaging. So I don't know, this is probably not the best answer. I don't think there is, maybe collectively, we need to kind of maybe space them more out. And maybe also ask our project coordinators to not just turn around, oh, you can just do it online. Just like really think about in what context. And Are we maybe competing too much with each other instead of collaborating in doing these events? So maybe join forces more and, you know, make it shorter, and maybe multiple projects organizing these workshops together. I don't know if that's a good answer.
It's a good answer. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I again, that's one of the things that we consider is, you know, if rather than a 2-day event, spread it out being 2 or 3 hours a day for more days. But then, of course, you do have that problem with clashing with more other events. People still are expected to attend 5 or 6 hours worth of online stuff if you stretch things out over several days. Okay. Yes, a question here regarding the COVID workshops. Has anyone tried or engaged in online lunch break or coffee break meetings for networking? Would that be, I'm not sure, STH, or something in your opinion that could be tried? Anybody got a view on?
Well, in MC, European Marine Educators Association, there were a lot of lunch meetings for ideas exchanging and for projects, and I've been to some of them. They were nice, and they originated some joint events, like for World Oceans Day, and we did this Wear Something Blue that we also posted in social media. It is a nice way, but for me, it wasn't lunchtime. But yeah, then again, it's like everything, it has good and bad. So it's hard finding, and I don't really think that we should find the methodology now, because everything is still changing and moving. So I think we have to just hang on the bridge a little bit more and see what comes on the next side.
So, yeah, I mean, just a question. Do we see? Do you all see us going forward to a sort of a much more blended approach over the next year or so? Because of course, one of the things we have to take into account is that different countries are going to be moving at different rates in and out of lockdown and restrictions and international travel. So, how do we see things moving forward?
I think it's already happening. I've seen a lot of planning for conferences next year, even in autumn, where they are saying it's going to be a hybrid event. And I think that will allow for it. I don't know, it depends on the people who organize it. So if the whole technology always brings, you know, a bit of extra risk. But if it works, I think we can make what we do more accessible. And in that context, working in this international context, would be amazing if, that's extra funding, of course, needed, then if we can, you know, have people there like translators, or, you know, do it in a multilingual way, especially, I don't know where people are from. Maybe people can say in the chat where they're logging in from and what time it is where they are, because I know in yesterday's session that I attended, there was a lot of people from Brazil there, and it would be really cool if we can use these technologies to help us make science more accessible, and, you know, you get the best of both ways. And I guess we do have to experiment a bit more of what works the best and share these experiences so that we can learn from each other and go, okay, but that means also we have to share the failures, and this is usually not what happens. And I think there is, in generally in science, in all the publications, I think somebody mentioned that controversial paper earlier on. Yes, I've read it. No, but I didn't read the paper. I read some of the comments, and it went a bit wild on paper, just to acknowledge I saw that. I think it is important that we just also talk about when workshop totally face plants and it's really gone horribly wrong, because we can't learn if we don't learn from our mistakes. And there should be less pressure on people to go like, do the perfect event. You know, we're not wedding planners. We want, you know, it's not the one day that we also can go, okay, this went wrong. and why not. And also I didn't choose something where things went wrong to present here. You know, people don't do it, but there should be maybe a get together of all the horrible things that happened and acknowledge that's also work involved. And I don't know, that's just, yeah, just a long rant on that, because I think it's important.
We're drawing to the end of our time at the moment. So if there are any more burning questions anybody wanted to throw out there before we start to wrap up? I am trying to go through the chat, but I'm sort of multitasking. You know what it's like when you're trying to listen and view everything and also run the chat. I've not run a Zoom meeting before, so if I've missed something that somebody asked, please do shout at me and I will pull it out of the chat.
Is it possible that we can, I don't know, maybe that's a question for Angel, that we can save the chat and maybe get back to people in time? I don't know if that's possible. Angel is like,
I am regularly saving the chat. You should be able to, I think you can do it from your own window as well onto your own network. There's a little 3 dots in the bottom right-hand corner of the chat, depending on which platform you're viewing Zoom on, and you just save and it saves it in wherever your Zoom folder is on your system. So cool.
Yep. Otherwise, I can save it as well, and send the questions to you, Kathrin.
Yeah, because then we can, I don't know how we get them back to people, the answers, but maybe that can be done from the CommOCEAN website. So, you know, or I don't know, or via the Twitter.
Yeah, or everybody has your contact details because you have them on the slide. So if people sort of don't hear an answer to a specific question, I'm sure they can contact people directly. So, okay, there's one more quick question I'm going to throw out there, and maybe we can just do it as a show of hands. Online events with simultaneous sessions or plenary room only? What do people prefer? So maybe raise your hands if you prefer to do it in the same way we're doing it for CommOCEAN, where you've got simultaneous sessions and you can pick and choose which ones you go to. Raise your hand if that's your preferred way of doing it. Yeah. Okay. And what about? Okay, there's a few thumbs up. Excellent. I'm not counting them because I just don't have the brain power right now. Okay. And what about doing it as a plenary only? So it's a single track conference. People can dip in and out of they could either watch the whole thing, but it's all just one track. You don't have to pick between your sessions. Who prefers that? Okay. Tricky. People like choices. People like to have options by the looks of it. Okay, I am going to wrap this up now because it's 11:29. Sorry, no, it's not. I'm in the UK. It's 10:29, I think, Central European time. This is why I missed the first session yesterday, because I was completely wrong on the time zones. So I'm just going to wrap this up. Thank you so much to our 3 speakers. It's been a really great session. And thank you to Angel for managing all the hosting and letting people in and out of the room and everything. So it's been really great. I look forward to seeing you in the upcoming sessions. I think it is now the official lunch break, and the next, we've got about half an hour before the next round of sessions. So bye everybody. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Fiona, that was amazing.
Yeah, thank you very much. You did really well.